Yeah,
you
and
know?
that's like a being two-faced. You're saying that you believe in this, but then at the same time you're not following the same thing within that in that religion or that type of deal, the ideals of it.
Right, right. You've got to walk the walk as well as talk the talk. And it's a lot easier to talk than it is to walk,
Yeah,
and I do my best to walk the walk. I'm not always successful. None of us are, but you bring yourself back. Every time you stumble a little bit or slip, you just pick yourself right up and go again. In fact, a big part of the practice of Buddhism, especially when you're first getting started, is the normal state is you bring yourself back, you bring yourself back, you bring yourself back. Do it 100 times, 1,000 times, it doesn't matter. Your default is you bring yourself back, get back on the path, get back to virtue. And after a while, it sticks, and you do see a difference in the way people around you feel and behave. Because, like we were saying, you're offering protection to them by not doing bad things. You're being an example, and people start feeling better around you, I think, and people, interact with you differently. You can see a difference. Somebody once talked to me about, he was worried about being misunderstood. People thought this of him or that. And I said, your actions will speak louder than your words. If they see you being a good person day after day, they will realize, they really will know. And people notice it, and it makes them happier. So, it's a path that, even though you're working on yourself, yeah, it does help the people around you a lot.
yeah.
True.
And I find, and like with different types of like there's like you stop and look and you look at other groups, okay, how they are, and certain things we call parallel to where one religion comes close to the other, and where people they listen to what one says and they learn from both, and but can they fully understand either side of it?
Well,
I mean,
there's always, yeah, there's always parallels. Yeah, but go on.
yeah, but can they?
What was that? Well, these parallels in religion. The first thing I think of is that all humans are basically the same all through history. I'm not going to talk about Julian James's theory of the bicameral mind or anything like that, but basically all human beings are facing the same issues. We've got the same body, right? We've got the same brain, the same heart and lungs. We have a lot of the same concerns, birth, life, marriage, reproduction, family, society. Every culture has these things. And so when wise men, and wise women for that matter, but when wise people look at these problems, a lot of times they see the same thing and they come up with similar solutions. So you can read the Bible and read things that Jesus says, and some of them are very close to things that the Buddha said. They were not teaching the same thing at all, but you've got parallel ideas. And there's a story I remember when a Buddhist monk from Southeast Asia was visiting, I think it was England, and he didn't know much about the West. And one of his students who was traveling with him, they went to a hotel, and there was a Bible in the hotel. And this is the holy book of the land I'm living in. So one of his students who could read English read to him excerpts from the Bible, read to him the Sermon on the Mount. And the Buddhist teacher said, those are the words of a bodhisattva. Those are the words of someone who's on his way to becoming a Buddha. And it's always made me think that, because there will be another Buddha one day, according to Buddhist thought. And I wonder if they'll tell stories. Our current Buddha there's something called the Jataka stories, right? These are stories of all his past lives. And I just wonder if the future Buddha, there will be a story of the time he was a teacher, you know, in ancient Palestine, talking about let's be nice to each other, let's love each other instead of like all this warfare and killing and stuff. Um, so yeah, there's always these parallels, but I think it's important. I spent years just picking from this religion, from this. I've studied religions and occult philosophy and all this stuff. And I finally, when I looked at Buddhism, I saw, first of all, I saw that a lot of the stuff I'd been studying had basically been stolen from Buddhism or picked from Buddhism. And Buddhism is very old. It's 2,600 years old. So it's older than any of these other systems that we're picking from it. So when I started studying Buddhism seriously, and by that I mean, Theravada Buddhism, I suddenly saw that this was a complete system. So we were talking about how there's a lot of Buddhist techniques out there that are being taught, like what they call kind of inaccurately mindfulness meditation, where you just sit and all you think about is the present moment, and you don't care about the past or you don't care about the future. You're just here now. And so in theory, all your worries about the past and the future just go away, and you can just groove in this kind of eternal now thing. Well, that is helpful to make you feel better for a little while, but it doesn't really get you anywhere. Now, in Buddhism, they do have that technique, but it's part of a bigger system. And the idea in Buddhism is you focus on the present moment, right here and right now. The past, 5 minutes ago, 5 years ago, 5 seconds ago is not real. The future, 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5 years from now, that's not real. All that's real is this moment, right? When you're in that moment, you've got work to do. Because if you can drop all your worries about the past and the future, you can concentrate your mind right now. And right now is when you make decisions. And every decision you make right now, every decision you make, every action you do is going to affect your future. And if we make these decisions while we're lost in our own heads thinking about that sandwich, we're not going to make good decisions, except we want to go out to the store and buy some mayonnaise and some sliced turkey or something to make a sandwich with, or whatever you like in your sandwich. So yeah, it's interesting to see these little different parallels. But I think you've got to really, with Buddhism anyway, it really is a complete system, and everything that the Buddha taught fits in with everything else. The Buddha was very autistic. I really think he was like the ultimate autist. To be a Buddha, Buddha is a technical term, right, in the Buddhist religion, and people get enlightened. And in the term used is arhat, right, where they wake up and they know what the Buddha knew, right? They call the Buddha because he can teach it. A lot of people wake up and they say, wow, how do I be enlightened? And you say something like, no matter where you are, man, there you are. No matter where you go, there. It's hard to put into words, but the Buddha, he was able to describe every step that his mind took to do this. And then he spent 45 years walking around northern India, answering questions about it and refining it. So at the end of the day, by the time he died, or passed into parinirvana, as they say, we had this complete system of how our mind works and how we can control our own mind. Because the mind's a dangerous thing. Mind's a powerful thing, and the most important thing you can do with your life, I think, is get your mind to work better. Because your mind is going to be what makes you miserable. Your mind is going to be what makes you happy. And your mind is going to determine how good your future is. Like I say, if you can be really aware and alert when you decide to do things. And I don't do this myself perfectly. I fall down all the time. When I'm conscious and alert and I can keep it together, I do real well. But sometimes you get caught up in the enthusiasm. Roger, you know about this too. You can be discussing something. You're supposed to stay on a certain topic, right? And suddenly you lose your focus. Suddenly, instead of being separate and like looking at all this stuff, you enter into a becoming. And suddenly you're arguing about like, where does gold come from? Then this and that, and the other thing. and you completely lose track of what you're doing because I stop being mindful. And again, it's easy to slip back, but I have to climb back up. I have to climb back up on that horse after I'm thrown. What's the old line? Pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again. And do it again and again and again, and not beat yourself up too much over, mistakes you've made, because that doesn't do any good. The Buddha said that if we make a mistake, if we do something, he said, before you do anything, you should consider whether it's going to do any harm or not. And then if it doesn't seem like it is, then you do it. And as you're doing it, you look, is it doing any harm? If you see that it is, you stop. If you see that it doesn't, you keep going. And then after you do it, you look at it and say, did I do any harm when I did that? And if you didn't, great. If you did, you say, I don't want to do that again. It's very good to discuss it perhaps with someone who's further along on the path, admit what you did, and then you resolve, I'm not going to repeat that. But if you just sit there and beat yourself up about it and wail and punish yourself, and we all tend to do this, and I do it too, it doesn't do you any good. The best we can do as humans, the best we can do as creatures living in time, because we can't go back, is to look at our mistakes and say, I'm not going to beat myself up over it, but I'm not going to do it again, and go forward. So,
Yeah. Well, and one other thing, what if the 10 things that mindset of what a Buddhist is? Okay, because to me, to say that you understand, you live the life, there's certain things, 10 things a Buddhist should know, or what you call it, people would know that, okay, to be a Buddhist, and what is a Buddhist? What 10 things the set mind of a Buddhist is, that to where you can actually say that you can fully understand who the world, the way they are, the way they handle things mentally, physically, and emotionally about a Buddhist. How does 10 things about a Buddhist, and people, that's the thing that can actually understand the whole idea of it. I don't not know, but that's the thing, a peace of mind of how they handle things,
well, like I said, there's a lot of different kinds of Buddhism in the world.
Yeah.
And so different Buddhists have different ideas of what is required of them to be a good Buddhist. And then you have to remember that there's 2 levels of Buddhism. You have what they call, well, technically 3. You've got the regular lay people, lay followers, like everyday Buddhists, but they go to work every day and they're just. Then you've got what they call the Sangha, which are the monks. It's actually bhikkhu, which means, I think, wanderer. They're not like Western monks, but that's a pretty good translation. So, and then you've got what they call the noble Sangha. And the noble Sangha are monks who have attained enlightenment. They're arhants. They're basically on the same level as the Buddha mentally. They just don't teach. To teach, that makes you a Buddha. So each group has its own responsibilities and things it has to do. Although the Sangha and the Noble Sangha are pretty much seamless, because you never know. You're not supposed to tell people if you become enlightened, if you're a monk. You're not supposed to discuss it. So when you meet a Buddhist monk, you never know. Maybe he's enlightened, maybe not. They don't talk about it. That's a private, very private thing.
Yeah.
But if you're a lay follower, just like a normal guy like me, your main thing is you follow the precepts.
What's the precept?
You try to incorporate the precepts are